welcome back to another episode of Stacking M's. I'm so glad that you are joining us. We have a special guest. And before I introduce her, as you know, we focus here on marketing, money, and mindset. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Payton, marketing consultant and business coach. And today I have one of my very best girlfriends here with me, Karina. She is one of the absolute best marketers that I know. And we actually met in business school. Ooh, I don't even want to say how many years ago.
You don't need to tell people that.
And let me clarify, when I say business school, I'm not talking about any online program. I'm talking about Darden. We actually attended Darden at the University of Virginia, where we got our MBAs. So I'm going to just dive in here and ask you, why did you decide to go to business school, Karina?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll take you back and I'll tell you what my kind of background was. So before I went to business school, as you know, I was actually a mental health therapist. And I mean, like, I was all in. I had a master's in clinical social work. I did a 3-year post-grad degree in psychodynamic thinking and Freudian thinking and attachment theory. So it was like some serious sit on my couch, tell me about your dreams and your mom.
Kind of like how we are right now, right?
A little bit like that. Well, actually, I will say, as we fast forward, that's actually, I think, one of the things that allows me to really understand marketing and understand the consumer and work in teams, because there's just a lot of like reading people and knowing people and understanding what motivates them and what influences them, because at the end of the day, that's really what marketing is. But anyway, so I was pretty deep in this career. I was about 10 years in, and there were a couple of things that went into play. One, I was like working towards a specific license to do private practice, and some of the rules changed, some of the laws changed in New York for like the licensing laws. And at the same time, I had just gotten married, and I was thinking a lot about like the future and like earning potential. And I had started taking on some kind of like marketing type projects at the place where I was working, because it was, although I was focused on like the clinical work with my clients, it was also a place where we got to wear a lot of hats. So all of those things combined made me decide that I needed to try something new. And I decided, in a very unexpected turn of events, I decided to get an MBA. And honestly, I didn't really know what to expect out of that experience. And I kind of was just going with the flow. But it ended up being one of the best decisions that I made. And marketing just ended up being a really good fit for me and my interests and the way that like I naturally flow and like to think.
So when you got to Darden, did you know you wanted to focus on marketing?
Girl, when I got to Darden, I couldn't believe I was at Darden.
I know, I had the same experience. I was like, damn, I'm in business school? Like, this is different.
I was like, who told these people to let me in?
Exactly.
So I spent the better half of like the first couple of months like dealing with my imposter syndrome and like, what am I doing here? But then it like very naturally lent itself to like marketing and kind of consumer insights, and the kind of just consumer packaged goods space. It was just something that really naturally lends itself to like understanding how people think. And it just, I was naturally very drawn there. So it totally made sense for me.
I don't know why, but maybe because of where we are, right? Remember the National Black MBA conference we went to? That was a fun time. And on many levels.
That was like 8 weeks into business school, which was crazy.
Right. It was, okay, so we started business school. We were also a part of a program called the Consortium for Business Management. I'm messing it up, but we were in the consortium. Shout out to the consortium. And a part of that program was 8 weeks into business school, they usher you off to this conference. Or did that happen before school started?
That happened in June. That happened before.
Oh, that actually
our MBA
happened
program.
before. So I'm talking about national. Okay, I'm mixing it up. Okay, so consortium started before we even started business school. And what the consortium does is they bring you there for this conference. There are recruiters there that are willing to give you jobs before you even step foot on the college campus to get your MBA. So
Which
that
is
was
amazing.
Right, it's awesome. But I remember that time, like, me and Karina were like, what the hell are we doing? Like, We didn't know. We used that time to explore, right? We both knew. I knew I was going there for marketing. I think Karina had a vague idea that she was going there for marketing. But fast forward to 8 weeks into business school, we were at National Black MBA. And I remember we were interviewing with companies for marketing roles, and we were roommates, right? And what were you thinking at the time? I want you to tell the people, because I remember what you were thinking.
Honestly, like, I just remember it being it was just such a whirlwind. Like, here I am, like, just a few weeks before I was a practicing therapist. And next thing I know, I'm in Atlanta, because it was in Atlanta.
Yep.
I'm in Atlanta getting ready to interview with some of the top, like, brands for roles. It was a trip.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't believe that I was there, or what I was doing there. And I mean, it was just 8 weeks into the experience. So I was just kind of like rolling with the punches, not quite sure really what to make of the whole experience. It was pretty jarring now that we think back on it.
It was, and we were both nervous as hell because we were interviewing with these companies. We had barely taken any courses at this point. But now thinking back on it, I understand why these companies were so willing to give us jobs, because they knew that the education we were going to get while we were getting our MBA was really going to set us up for success, to be successful in those internships, and more so long term, right? So who did you wind up working with after business school?
I ended up going to Colgate-Palmolive after business school, which, interestingly enough, out of that national MBA conference, 8 weeks into business school, I interviewed for an internship, got the internship, moved forward with the internship, did really well, and then was offered a full-time role, and that's where I joined after business school. So really, like, the traditional recruiting process is one that I was able to kind of like skip over, which I'm very thankful for. And it turned out to just be like a really great fit for me.
So what were some of the things, the brands that you were responsible for while there? What were some of the projects that you worked on?
Yeah. So while at Colgate, I started my experience there. I remember my internship was on Fabuloso, which is in a home cleaning brand, which is actually near and dear to my heart because I'm Dominican, and Fabuloso reminds me of Saturday mornings, music blaring while my mom is cleaning. But Colgate really makes some of the best brands. So I was able to work on like Colgate Max Fresh, Colgate Optic White, Colgate Total Mouthwash. I was in charge of the Colgate Kids portfolio and kind of like the licensing portfolio, which was really cool. I got to really immerse myself into like the mind of a 5-year-old and what are the new upcoming brands and how can we better appeal to kids and their moms and address some of the underlying challenges. And yeah, I mean, the opportunity to go into marketing, learning from one of the best companies in the world and who's just very experienced and skilled and had a very structured way of teaching, it was an invaluable experience.
What was your least favorite part about your marketing role at Colgate? Or your least favorite category? Or you could tell us both.
That is so interesting. You know, it's really funny because part of my role working in these brand management roles, there's an element of like the brand and the marketing, but there's also like an operational element where you serve as like what they call the center of the wheel, and you're kind of like acting like a mini CEO of the brand. So you have responsibility over the marketing and the brand, but you also have responsibility over the finance and the supply chain and operations and demand management. So I was able to kind of get a 360 view of the business. And it's so interesting because the things that I found least appeal to me were some of the softer creative things. Like, for example, do you remember, I feel like I remember saying this to you over the summer after my internship. It was like, I remember sitting during my internship work. I remember my internship project was a project on Fabuloso, and I had to like launch some innovation for the brand. and some of it was like new scents and new flavor, new scents, which is kind of the selling point of that product. And I remember I spent hours having debates over whether the liquid should be pink or whether it should be purple. And I remember I was like, if this is marketing,
I don't want it.
I need a new career. I'm going back to mental health counseling because I cannot spend any more time thinking about pink versus purple.
Right.
And then, of course, later I learned that there's a lot more to marketing than that. That was just kind of like the scope of the projects I was working on. But I will say it was definitely that, like, the time thinking about those little creative details, which actually means so much when you're thinking about, like, the brand experience and how consumers are perceiving your brands. But definitely it was one of those aspects that I valued less at the time, that I was a little bit more frustrated with.
I agree. I remember us having a conversation because you were so frustrated by it. And when I was interning at L'Oreal, I didn't have to deal with that aspect just yet. So then when I started working with them full time, I landed, after I did sales, I was in a product development role. And I remember calling Karina like, yo, they talking about this green is too blue and it's too yellow. And I was like, who cares? Just pick a color. Like,
pick a color. Let's move on.
Right. Like, let's move on. And I think that that's why we, connect so much, because we like those same aspects of marketing, the actual strategy and what's going on behind the scenes. But like, if you asking us for a color, baby, just pick a color. Just pick a color. Like, we don't care. But it is important. So what was your favorite?
It was definitely thinking through the overall go-to-market strategy. So for example, when I was launching new products, it's so much more than just launching a product. It's looking at the environment that you're going to launch it in holistically. So, who is the consumer that's going to use it, and what else is available in the market for them? What are their price points? What scents and colors do they have? How does this play into that environment? Like, will this have a competitive advantage? Will it get lost in the crowd? So for me, like, the go-to-market strategy and thinking about the macro environment and the consumer, that's where I find like the most excitement. And
so dig a little bit into this, because you have a background in psychology, right? And now you're talking about the go-to-market strategy, the psychology, not the psychology, but the macro environment of the go-to-market strategy. Do you feel that because of the psychology background, that's why you're so drawn to the go-to-market strategy?
I think so.
Piece of marketing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, so a couple of things, like working, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working at a big corporation, working with people is going to be critical. So for one, I really enjoy being in roles or working in capacities where I have to work with others. And to successfully work with others, you have to like really know who people are and where they're coming from, and like meet them where they are. So I would say that from just like a work environment perspective. But the second thing is, like, if you want to develop effective products and effective marketing strategies, you have to truly understand your customer. Like, and I'm not talking about like, people talk about like, oh, how old are they?
Right.
How many children do they have? Do they live in? I'm talking about like,
know
them. Like,
yes.
what is at the pit of their stomach? What keeps them up at night? What is it that they're looking for? Right. And that is the psychology of consumers. That's like understanding how to provide a benefit or a product that's going to create, like, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's so true. Like, what you are doing effectively, if you're working effectively, is you're giving your customer a transformation. And the only way that you give your customer a transformation, that you give them like a changing experience, is if you know who they are,
right?
And like what they're about and what they're struggling with and what they want, and like, you know, what is it that they think about what is their day-to-day life. So absolutely, I think the fact that I am like really interested in psychology and I can get really obsessed about the customer makes me more effective at developing strategies that is able to reach them.
Now, thinking about like the tools that you had in corporate, what were some of the things that you actually did to figure out who that customer was very intimately?
Yeah, I mean, you know, small business owners will ask, or small brand owners will ask, well, what are the things that corporate does? Like, what is the secret sauce? What do they know that small brands don't know? And what they do, like having worked at big brands, I had access to huge budgets to do consumer research, right? So I had a team always that was available to answer, you know, these questions from me, or whatever outstanding questions I had about my customer, or to help me close knowledge gaps, or if I was launching a product, to get them to know, to get their reactions and get their feedback on whatever it is that I'm launching, and make sure that it resonates with them. Because at the end of the day, as marketers, as business owners, as brand owners, we are selling to people.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that those people that you're trying to reach, you know, have a positive response to what you're trying to launch. At the end of the day, it's all about them. And one of the mistakes that a lot of small business owners make is that they don't make their customer, the hero in the story. So working in corporate environments, I had the ability to, and the access to large budgets to do customer research and to understand the types of questions that you need to be asking your customers, and how do you think about the responses and interpret the responses in order to make effective decisions.
So essentially, you were outside of the large budgets. You still had to develop the questions to ask, right? You had to know which questions to ask in order to get the feedback that you were seeking, right? Did you do that by putting together a hypothesis and saying, okay, I think that these customers do this, I'm going to ask this question? Or did you just put together like a big list of questions and kind of see what happened?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think we often have hypotheses going into things, but we need to be careful as we're doing consumer research not to lead our customers with our own kind of thoughts and get them to our answer. But it was about asking open-ended questions and like trying, you know, you take into account like what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like if you're launching a new product, you obviously want to get their feedback to that product. You also want to get their feedback. You also want to create some benchmarks and understand like, well, what do the alternatives look like, right? So you shape your products based on like what it is that you're trying, your questions based around what questions it is that you're trying to answer, and what it is that you're trying to achieve in the marketplace. But, you know, it was really about asking and soliciting the type of feedback from your customers that was going to help you make the right conclusions.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of times with smaller brands, independent brands, they'll come with a hypothesis. And I asked this question on purpose. They'll come with a hypothesis about what they believe they think the customer wants, right? And oftentimes it's based upon what they actually want, not what the customer wants. So I hope you all caught that. Like when you are going into customer research, you want to, yes, it's okay to have a hypothesis, but you have to make sure that your questions are not leading people to a certain response versus you going in and being open to what the responses will be.
Yeah.
That's a big, big part of doing your customer research and your market research.
I mean, I think the other thing I will say is that sometimes, and I've learned this through a lot of product launches, sometimes what the customer says they will do and what they actually do
It's not the same thing.
is not the same thing. So you also have to like make sure that you're kind of going after some prying questions and some follow-up questions, and that you're using your own kind of judgment, like understanding the marketplace, understanding the competitive set, understanding your customer, and making some assessments of your own. But I mean, I think you mentioned about smaller business owners, and I want to make this caveat because sometimes small business owners will say, well, I don't have a multi-million-dollar budget.
That was going to be my next question. For the brands that don't have the budget, what should they do?
There are so many ways that you can go out there and get research and just consumer insights, right? I mean, one, you can talk to friends. Like make sure that the people you're asking questions of match who your target customer is. So for example, if you are trying to sell a product for, new moms or expecting moms who have extra disposable income and they can afford a certain, I don't know, let's say diaper bag, make sure that the people you're asking questions of match who it is that you're trying to speak to. But you can tap into your own resources like your friends and family. But there's also, a lot of forums. Like you can go to Reddit. There's a Facebook group for basically any interest that exists right there.
Yeah.
So go to Facebook groups, like poll people. People are so open and willing to talk about themselves and their experiences. You can do research on things like Quora. Something that I think is like an untapped resource is customer reviews. So if you are launching, back to my example, like a diaper bag, go to what you identify as your competitors and read customer reviews. And that will leave you a lot of clues. You'll see what it is that customers love and go to the one-star reviews. You're going to see what the customers hate.
Yep.
And that's going to give you like insights into like opportunities that are available for you. So, you can leverage your own resources and then go to social forums and groups where your target audience is and ask them questions and see where they're leaving traces of information, such as customer reviews. And that'll give you some good clues as you're kind of developing your own product and your own positioning.
And then what do they do when they read those 4 customer reviews? What should they be doing with that information?
They should be tracking that information. They should be capturing it somewhere. And then they should be, after they compile it, they should be interpreting it and coming through some conclusions, right? So I've read all of these customer reviews. I interviewed all of these customers. I went on a Facebook moms group and I asked this question about what are your key struggles of carrying all of your baby things around. And this is the information I got. You should compile that, interpret it, and make a list of like, here are the key themes. Here are the key findings that I'm coming up with. And jot down like, what are the top 3 to 5 themes that you're coming up against, and use that to think of what the implications are for yourself and for your business.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that entrepreneurs have when it comes to going to market?
That they can just put up a website and people are going to come buy their stuff?
It doesn't work?
No.
It don't work?
No, yeah. I wish it worked.
I wish it worked too, right?
I'd be like, www.shopify.com. Here, buy my stuff. But there's a lot more work that needs to happen up front before you even put up a website.
Now, I know that you are expanding into helping entrepreneurs now. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, I know, what you're doing with them, what you're helping them with, and what that experience looks like.
Yeah. So, during COVID, so I've had a good run in corporate, and I've had the opportunity to learn a lot. During COVID, I came across a group of mompreneurs who had small businesses with the objective of just like making enough money to stay home with their kids. I'm a mom. I have 2 babies. So that really resonated with me and touched my soul. And in this, in some conversations with this community, I would sometimes, there was a lot of knowledge sharing, and I would occasionally share something that was apparently really helpful to them. And I found that tremendously just rewarding. Kind of taking what I've learned to really help people and make an impact on their business. So I am starting to kind of shift gears a little bit and going into business coaching, working with product entrepreneurs. And it's really about helping them develop the strategies to compete in the market. So like, how do they define their ideal audience? How do they think about their competitive set? How do they think about their brand positioning? And how do they convey that in a compelling way to the people that are going to buy from them? And then how do they develop strategies around, pricing, making sure that their products and their assortment makes sense? How do they develop a promotion or marketing strategy that aligns and conveys their brand message, so that they can win in the marketplace? This is like the upfront work that really needs to be happening,
that most people don't do, right? They don't spend the time doing those things.
But I mean, again, it took me an MBA and years of experience working in corporate America, leading big brands, to like get to a place where I've learned this stuff. So, I think it's understandable. But ultimately, I want to help people to get closer to what they're trying to where they're trying to be financially and from a time independence perspective.
I love that. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how to use psychology in the marketing, right? Because many people who are starting these brands, they're not trained like you in psychology, classical psychology. So what are some things that brand owners, founders can do to incorporate the usage of psychology in their marketing?
Yeah. I would say it's about empathy and putting yourself in the mind of your customer, and approach your customer with deep curiosity. So, for example, I've worked with some clients, and I've given them a list of like starter questions. Here are some questions that you might want to ask your customer. But it's about taking those questions and asking like the follow-up questions, having like curiosity about what your customer is like really hungry for, what it is that they want, and putting yourself in the mind and the experience and the life of your customer. So, for example, I had a conversation recently with somebody who was launching a baby attire business, baby clothing, for with African prints. And the idea was that, parents feel a lot of pride over their African roots, and they want to display that to the community, and they want to wear that out in some of their best events, and so on and so forth. So I'm talking to her, and I ask her around what she's launching, what her products are launching. And she tells me that she is starting to launch, that she's going to launch baby onesies and pajamas. And the reason that she's doing that is because those items have higher margins.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about it, and I'm putting myself in the mind of this parent who has deep pride about their heritage and their culture, and they want to put that on display when they're going out. And I'm thinking, if I were that parent and I want to put that on display, how is pajamas that nobody's going to see going to meet that need for me?
Right.
And so I challenged her, and I said, hey, let's talk about your customer a little bit. Put yourself in their mind, in their eyes. They feel this deep pride around their culture. How do you think that wearing pajamas that nobody's going to see going to help them? And she was like, oh, I guess it's not. I selected this product because there's higher margins. And I was like, exactly. You're making choices based on you and your business, not on your customer. At the end of the day, the customer is the ultimate decision maker, and they make their decisions with their wallets.
Exactly. If they ain't paid for it yet, they ain't made a decision.
That's right.
Okay.
The cha-ching tells you how they feel about you.
Yes.
Loud and clear. And so based off of that conversation, she decided to change the products that she's selling to go for products that their kids can wear out. But again, to your question about like, how do you use psychology to drive your business? It's empathy. Don't make your business decisions should be based on like deep empathy and understanding of your customer and what it is that they want. And if you're not rooted in that, if you're not grounded in that, you're going to make a lot of really poor decisions.
So much, right? So much to unpack there. So while she was making a decision based purely off of profitability, she neglected her customer, right? And so you want to make sure that there's a balance, because I'm really big on making sure that your brand is profitable, but you also have to make sure that you are being empathetic. I love the way that you said that, to the customer, and ensuring that you're meeting their needs first, right? Because she would have put out these onesies, and I mean, she could have made some sales, but she probably wouldn't be as successful as she is now.
That's
right.
That's
so
right.
I'm shifting gears here a little bit. I want to talk about entrepreneurship. How's it been?
Entrepreneurship is an exciting roller coaster
I was about to say, you lying?
of a journey. Entrepreneurship is an exciting roller coaster of a journey.
Okay, I can take that.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it's really about having tenacity and accountability for yourself, because no one is holding you accountable but you. So like, you have to really be disciplined and understand, like, okay, what is it that I'm trying to work for? How do I break that down into digestible chunks? How do I hold myself accountable for it? Because no one is doing that but me. But like, also, this is where psychology comes in. Like, knowing yourself and reading yourself and being in tune. Like, I'll say in the last 2 weeks, I've had a pretty big slowdown, because I was like running. Oh yeah, I'm doing this entrepreneur thing. And then I started to crash. And my body was like still telling me, you're crashing. And I was like, but I got to go. I got things to do. And then I crashed. And I heard my body. And I was like, we're going to just be easy for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And I'm recharging and re-energizing. But that's where the roller coaster part of it comes in, because it is exciting, right? To start something that you're trying to build for yourself. But, success is never final. And it's not built overnight. So it's about having that endurance and stamina and accountability, and pacing yourself with realistic but ambitious goals and expectations.
And honoring yourself when your body is telling you, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we always want to push, but you must honor when your body is telling you to take a break, right? Along those lines, I would love to know if there's any things that you have taken from corporate that you are incorporating into your entrepreneurship journey, and or taken from our MBA experience that you are incorporating into your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I would say equally in corporate as in now, and honestly in all areas of my life, this entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey, but it should not be.
Yes, I agree.
You should surround yourself with community and with support and with mentors and people who are a few steps ahead of you and can help kind of speed up your track. So, making sure that you are connected to people who are going through a similar experience, who can share their insights so you can have camaraderie with, but also making the right investments in yourself, and working with people who can provide that outside perspective to move your business forward. Sometimes it's easy to say, "Oh, well, I can't spend that on on a coach or on a mentor or on this program that I want to do." But truly, what you should be thinking is, I can't afford not to.
Right. Yep.
Because the longer you're spinning in place, trying to figure things out on your own, the more money you're leaving on the table, because you're not developing the right marketing and business and sales strategies, or you're just not getting that outside perspective. And I will say, kind of going to your question, that's exactly how I had to manage a new experience, in business school, and a new experience in corporate America, making sure that I had the right peers and support and partnership, that I had people that I can bounce ideas off of, but also like having the right mentors who can guide me throughout my career and the choices that I was making.
Right. All right. So this would not be a guest episode without me asking this question. So, we focus on marketing, money, and mindset. And I would love for you to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 where you sit on each of those. So I'm going to say the word and you tell me, and then we'll talk about it.
Wait. Oh gosh, that's hard. Okay, hold on. 1 to 10, where do I sit?
Okay, marketing.
I'm gonna, gosh, it's just, I feel like you're always learning. There's always so much to learn. I'm gonna give myself an 8.5.
Are you thinking about it from the standpoint of marketing your your business now?
Oh, that's a good question.
How are you thinking about it? That's what I'm asking.
I'm thinking about it in terms of marketing skills and expertise.
Nah, you like a 15. So I'm talking about like how you market your business. Because you do. I get it, Karina, but like when it comes to products, honestly, you're one of the best to ever do it. So like, let's not even play that, right?
Stop.
Like, let's not do that. All right. So I want you to think about it from the standpoint because you're stepping into this new journey. And I will say this: I struggled with marketing my business when I started because we're so good at product marketing, right? So we've been so focused on consumer marketing, product marketing, building brands. When it comes to us building our business, I struggled. I didn't have a marketing strategy for the first year and a half, in full-time entrepreneurship. So we about to get to it. So that's what I want to hear from you. Like from an entrepreneurship standpoint, where do you sit on marketing?
I'm going to say a 6 or 7.
Okay. Give me one. 6 or I need a...
I'm going to go 6.
Okay. Money.
As an entrepreneur, I'm going to go 5.
Okay. And then mindset.
I'm going to go 8. Okay.
So the marketing, what do you need to get you from the 6 to like a 9 or a 10?
This is a new journey for me. So I think it is about honestly taking the time to strategize exactly where I want to play. I kind of feel like I've been like dipping my toe. And I've worked with some clients and kind of like getting a taste for where it is that I can create the most value and really make an impact with people. So I think it's about kind of finalizing that point of view for myself. Like, where do I want to play? Like, where do I think I can really win and be different and, really impact people, and then developing like a pretty robust marketing plan around it. There's also like the execution piece.
Girl, I hate it.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate it.
I mean, we're here, right? Like this was an effort, I imagine. So, it's interesting because I think in my mind, I have all of the pieces from a marketing perspective, like how I will execute it once I finalize like where I want to play. But the execution of it is what's going to take the most time. I think that there's elements of it that I know are going to be obvious, but then it's executing in a way that's consistent and delivering the message that I want to continue delivering and developing a plan out in advance.
Right.
So I think it's more about taking the time to sit down and create that strategy and putting it on paper well in advance.
Got it. Do you hate execution?
Do I hate execution? I mean, it's really interesting because as an entrepreneur, you're so excited about all the stuff that you're doing.
Get a couple more months under your belt. You're going to be like, Tara, who can I hire to do this for me? Because I'm not, Yeah,
maybe a couple virtual assistants to help on that end.
Definitely need a team. Yes, yes. All right, about the money. What do you need to get you from that 5 to a 9 or a 10?
Yeah, I think... so I'm actually going to be launching my first big launch in the next couple of months.
Nice.
My group coaching program. So I think, getting out there with my kind of signature offers is going to be what takes me in the right direction.
Okay. And then mindset. What did you say for mindset?
I said 8.
8. That's good. What could get you over to the 9, 10?
So I gave myself an 8 because I think that I'm a pretty like positive person. I have a lot of tenacity. Like once I decide something's happening, that shit is done.
Yes, we share that.
Yes.
Yep.
And I also I have a lot of self-awareness where I know I can listen to myself, and when I'm having moments of imposter syndrome, I can I can recognize those feelings and I can address them within myself. So that self-awareness definitely helps. But I would say what would bring me to the end, just continued team and moral support to and I think once I start executing some more of these things that I can see the results coming in, that's always a big push.
Right. Do I need to call you more?
No, you call me lots.
Okay. Because I got you. All right, so last question. So one of the things that I do every year is I have a word of the year, a theme, right? So this year, my word is elevation. A lot of things are going up a notch as far as my marketing is concerned, as far as how I show up, as far as how I serve my clients and my students inside my program. And I've had it, even before we got into the new year, I've had this word on my mind. It just kind of came up and I'm like, oh, that's my word for the new year,
it's a nice
right?
word, elevation.
Elevation. And I feel like it's very fitting. So I would love to know, first of all, do you do a word for the year?
I have not a word for the year, but I have things that I know I'm working on for the year.
Okay. So I want to know off the top, what would be your word for the year or things that you're working towards for the year?
I would say my word for the year would be stamina. Because, particularly the beginning of entrepreneurship, getting things off the ground, takes a lot of mental energy and wherewithal and capacity and time. And I have 2 young kids. I have a full-time corporate job. So it's about continuing to push myself in a healthy way with stamina to continue to achieve my entrepreneurial goals. And making sure that everything stays balanced. My kids are good. My husband's taken care of. I'm still killing it at my job, and I'm serving my clients the way that I want to serve them.
Awesome. And I will tell you when to sit down when you need to sit down. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Sometimes I need somebody to tell me.
Yes, both of us though.
Yes.
So I appreciate you being here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in. Karina, let us know where people can find you, and we'll make sure to have all of this information in the show notes.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. I'll give you my address so you can put in the show notes. You can find me on Clubhouse. I spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, she be on Clubhouse, Clubhousing. Is that what she
love
said?
Clubhouse.
I might be over there one day just to join her, just because she's my friend. But yeah, she's always like, you should get on Clubhouse and you should. I'm like, no.
And of course, if anyone wants to reach me, they can email me as well, and I'll give you that information.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in for this episode, and I will see you on the next one. It's about the fun. Go back to that space where it was fun for you.